A general somewhere in the empire has just declared himself the new emperor. Legions are defecting to him by the day. The real emperor is thousands of miles away, on a war front, with no spare army to send home. Most men would panic. This one did not. He kept fighting the war he was already fighting. He sent no extra soldiers back. And when messengers finally reached him with better news, he barely reacted to that either. This was not the only time something like this happened. Across 4 centuries, a handful of Roman emperors developed a private set of techniques for staying level when the empire itself seemed to be ending. Some of them wrote these techniques down. All of them used them. Here is exactly what they did and why it worked. Rome's emperors did not have the luxury of a nervous breakdown. A visible moment of panic could trigger assassination, revolt, or the total collapse of morale on a battlefield. So the emperors who actually lasted, who held power for decades instead of months, were rarely the strongest generals or the richest men. They were the calmest. Many of them, whether they used the word or not, were shaped by Stoic philosophy, a school of thought built by Zeno, refined by Chrysippus, and carried into Rome by men like Seneca and Epictetus. Its central claim is simple. You cannot control most of what happens to you. You can only control how you respond to it. For an emperor facing plague, betrayal, and civil war at the same time, that was not an abstract idea. It was a survival strategy. By the 160s AD, the man who took this philosophy the furthest was already on the throne. Marcus Aurelius inherited a war he did not start, on a frontier he did not choose, against tribes crossing the Danube faster than Rome could respond. Then came something worse. A plague, likely smallpox, carried home by returning soldiers, that killed an estimated 5 million people across the empire, eventually including his own co-emperor. Marcus did not retreat to Rome. He stayed on campaign at the front for years. At night, in his tent, exhausted, he wrote to himself, not for an audience, not for publication. Those private notes are the book historians now call meditations. Inside it are the techniques. Technique 1, negative visualization. Before a battle, before the next report on the plague, Marcus would deliberately picture the worst outcome in advance. Loss, death, betrayal. Not to frighten himself, but to drain the shock out of it before it arrived. When bad news came, it rarely surprised him, because in his mind, he had already lived through it once. Technique 2, the view from above. When the war felt endless and the plague felt personal, Marcus would mentally rise. Picture the empire, then the earth, then the wider dark around it, watching his own crisis shrink to a single dot. A deliberate zoom out, used to strip a problem of its emotional weight by changing its scale. Technique 3, the dichotomy of control. This one was tested hardest in 175 AD, when Avidius Cassius, one of Marcus's most trusted generals, declared himself emperor on the front, based on a false rumor that Marcus had died. Rome now had a real civil war on its hands. Marcus's response was to sort the crisis into 2 piles, what he could control and what he could not. He could not control Cassius's ambition or the loyalty of distant legions. He could control his own composure and his own next decision. He refused to rush troops off the war he was already fighting. He waited. Cassius was killed by his own officers within months, and Marcus, by most accounts, showed no triumph. Only regret that he never got the chance to forgive him. Technique 4, amor fati, the love of fate. A century earlier, in 69 AD, the so-called Year of 4 Emperors, Rome burned through 4 rulers in 12 months, 3 of them murdered. Vespasian, a career general with no real political ambition, was pulled into that chaos and eventually took the throne. He was known for something specific: dry, dark humor in the face of disaster, and a total acceptance of whatever came next. He did not fight his circumstances. He worked with them. Even on his deathbed, his last recorded words were reportedly a joke about becoming a god. That is amor fati at its most extreme. Not forced positivity, but a refusal to resist what cannot be changed. Technique 5. Memento mori, remember you will die. Marcus wrote it to himself constantly. You could leave this life right now, not as despair, but as clarity. When death is genuinely on the table, and for a Roman emperor it always was, trivial fears lose their grip. What is left is only what actually matters. None of these 5 techniques made these men invincible. Marcus Aurelius still lost his co-emperor to plague, still buried soldiers by the thousands, still died on campaign in 180 AD, far from Rome. Vespasian still ruled over an empire that had just watched itself nearly tear apart. The techniques did not remove the crisis. They removed the panic. And that distinction mattered enormously. A calm emperor made sharper decisions, kept armies from fracturing further, and stopped one crisis from multiplying into 3. Marcus Aurelius's private notebook survived by accident, copied, recopied, nearly lost more than once, and it is now one of the most read philosophy books on Earth, almost 2,000 years later. Modern cognitive behavioral therapy borrows directly from Stoic technique, particularly the dichotomy of control. None of that was ever the goal. Marcus was writing reminders to himself, not a self-help book for the future. But the techniques worked so consistently on problems so much larger than most people will ever face that they outlived the empire that produced them. Marcus Aurelius did not invent any of this. He learned most of it from a man who was never an emperor, who was, in fact, born a slave. If a former slave and an emperor ended up practicing the exact same philosophy for the exact same reason, that philosophy is worth understanding on its own terms.